So what's going to happen in the 1920s is like what's happening today, is that there's going to be an increasing debate over what to do with the Mexican experience, what to do with the Mexican. And so when we take a look at the national legislation of the 1920s and 1930s, it reflected a tug of war between corporations needing labor forces and then restrictionists, right-wing evangelical bigots and racists known as eugenicists who were calling for deportation. And so this is what led to the creation of the Border Patrol under the immigration quotas restriction legislation of 1924. Mexicans were not included in the act, but now they had to pay a head tax to enter. So throughout the 1920s, these scientific racists known as eugenicists kept lobbying Congress to extend restriction legislation to Mexicans. But they could not mount enough backing to push a bill curbing Mexican migration. The power of agribusiness and other industrialists employing Mexicans blocked them. Representative James Nance Garner, just to give you an example, from Texas, he comforted the racists by informing them that Mexicans returned home after the picking season. All they want, in his words, is a month's labor in the United States, and that is enough to support them in Mexico for 6 months. They are a docile people. They can be opposed on. The sheriff can go out and make them do anything. But by the eve of the Great Depression, the Mexican and the Chicano economic and political situation worsened. And in this case, we're going to have to deal with a thing called repatriation. New arguments are going to be advanced by the eugenicists. Widespread unemployment, the racial undesirability of the Mexican, his un-Americanism. Now, Dr. Roy L. Garris of Vanderbilt University, a scientific racist and authority on eugenics, is going to testify before Congress claiming that his science could prove the Mexicans' inferiority. And so he had sent his graduate students to research and report on all major communities in the United States, from San Antonio to Los Angeles, from Denver to Chicago through Detroit. And their dissertations on the Mexican communities became evidence at congressional hearings. Now, I want you to understand that here is what one PhD candidate is going to write about my grandfather's community in El Paso, Texas. This is Segundo Barrio he's going to be writing about. And of course, he earned his degree writing the following about my dad's neighborhood known as Segundo Barrios. Their minds run to nothing higher than animal functions, eat, sleep, and sexual debauchery. In every huddle of Mexican shacks, one meets the same idleness. Hordes of hungry dogs and filthy children with faces plastered with flies, disease, lice, human filth, stench, promiscuous fornication, bastardly lounging, apathetic peons and lazy squaws, beans and dried chile, liquor and general squalor, and envy and hatred of the gringo. Yet there are Americans clamoring for more of this swine to be brought over from Mexico. Again, great science, no? So the restrictionists are going to win their battle as the Send the Mexican Back to Mexico movement inspired President Herbert Hoover. It was foreigners who were responsible for the Depression. It was foreigners who were responsible for white unemployment. It was foreigners who were responsible for the problems that Americans faced. And of course, most foreigners are un-American. And in this particular case, the favorite scapegoat of the Depression was the presence of Mexican workers in the United States. So Mexicans are going to be the first to be blamed for America's ills. So when the Great Depression hit, the United States is going to create a program known as repatriation. Hoover's Secretary of Labor, William Doak, requested funds for the expansion of the Border Patrol and encouraged local authorities throughout the Southwest and Midwest to devise programs for the deportation of Mexicans. And so I wore my shirt to honor this generation. And if you can take a look, it just says, I just look illegal. It's not something that's today, it's something that's going to happen during the Great Depression. So let's go see what happened in a small mining community in Arizona at this time.
A lot of the Anglos that were in high positions would take advantage of a lot of the Chicanos by pointing the finger at them or trying to make them feel inferior. I remember I was about 10 years old, and I was coming from the post office with one of my uncles. We were coming by, and this guy by the name of Pete Riley, who was a druggist right across the river. And he was driving a 29 Dodge. He slammed on the brakes because we tried to cross there and said, "You goddamn dirty Mexican, next time you do something like this, I'm gonna kick your ass up and down the railroad tracks." And that engraved in me for years and years and years.
For the next decade, the Mineros, isolated and powerless, could do little to improve their situation. But the worst was yet to come. In 1931, at the beginning of the Depression, the bottom dropped out of the copper market. Phelps Dodge closed down the mines. Of 3,000 formerly employed miners, only 42 had jobs. 8 million people across the United States were out of work. In the Southwest, Mexican Americans became scapegoats for the economic crises.
America's problems were due to the fact of the economy being in such a depressed state. America's problems were blamed on the immigrants themselves. And in this case, again, it was the Mexican.
The administration of President Herbert Hoover announced that strict enforcement of immigration laws would help solve the national unemployment problem. Mexicans, who had been encouraged to cross the border openly for decades, were the immediate target. The government moved swiftly to deport any Mexicans whose citizenship could be questioned. The program was called repatriation.
What started out perhaps as a very mannerly order turned out to be a total helter-skelter way of sending Mexicans back home. Mexicans were rounded up illegally. Mexicans were just shipped back. Many of these Mexicans were Americans. They were born in the United States. They were naturalized legally.
Los Mineros, who by now had deep roots in the U.S., were no longer wanted. Little distinction was made between those born in Mexico and those born in the United States. Some escaped being deported through pure luck.
My mother was expecting my youngest brother, Richard, and we were not able to get on that train. My youngest brother was born the next day, so that kept us from going back to Mexico.
Phelps Dodge assisted with the repatriation effort. They provided the trains to carry the Mineros away.
Most of them wouldn't argue because they knew they would suffer at the end. One way or other, they'd get a hold of them, you know, where they would make them wish they had gone.
There's nothing I could do. I just took those people around the border of Mexico. The PD and the Red Cross was paying me for that. And they gave me some money to give those people when I unload everything they had. All I had to do, unload trunks or boxes, whatever they had.
It's something